Oh, right, that's what we get. Good afternoon. I'd like to begin with flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board members, if you can just put their microphone as close to your mouth when you speak as possible, so YouTube can pick it up. Thank you.
Okay, here we go. We'll open up, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of June 9th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Need a motion to open a public hearing on 25 Liberty Street.
So, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So 25 Liberty Street.
Hello, this is Randy.
No, we were just talking about that. We have
It's
this
really-
great. We have the plans and stuff. We'll get them. I think this is again.
Okay, great. Yeah, I'm gonna start with a few introductory comments. I'm gonna turn it over to the architect.
Here.
I'm sorry.
Yes,
Okay.
and I just want to say that we'd really like to focus on this brand new plan, right?
Yes.
It's not to go back,
Oh, no.
but we just going to be focused on this.
Yeah, we're actually gonna try to keep it very brief. Rather than go through detail, we'll wait to see if you have questions.
All right.
Okay, so, yes, as you know, late last year, I was here in the last iteration of the plan was the one that we took forward and progressed that development, of that plan, to what we presented and what we submitted to the board, without really much change. It was obviously a lot more detail. In addition, we did get zone variances for the, roof porch being a few feet in the front yard, as well as for the accessory structure placement in the front yard. That was a garage, the car garage, and also a existing shed. Let's put that there. So, stepping back, just okay, from a purely objective standpoint, or point of view, I'm going to make a statement. The proposed house, we believe, is quite unsubstantial and understated. And everything's relative, but for a lot size this big and for what we're working with, we think that is the case. And the way, but that's purely objective, and that's based on, let's say, zoning, okay? We only have one variance, which is quite frankly fairly de minimis. So from the zoning standpoint, we did pretty good. A better comparison would be by looking at a lot of other comparable properties. So I went, and I won't bore you, but I went through a pretty detailed analysis of looking at 9 different properties, 4 of which are within an 1/8 mile away, like 650 feet or less. 3 of them I can see from my yard. And I think I submitted a drawing that shows the front elevation of 5 different houses 173 Bay, 11 Still, 80 Still, 25 Liberty, 94 Franklin. All of them very close by, and if you just look at that drawing, you'd be hard pressed to say that 25 Liberty is massive. In fact, it's probably the smallest. It is, I think, the smallest from a massive scale standpoint. But those are objective criteria, and this board tends to take subjective matters, which is important. I'm definitely aware of that. Okay, so and so to be sensitive to that, and to what this board recommended back in November and December, we created a design that I believe, and our architect as well, hopefully should satisfy this board. And actually, at the same time, achieve what a lot of my objectives were when I purchased the property a few years back. And hopefully that creates a favorable situation for all of us. So the last thing I'd like to say is that it's been a long process for me, but also for my neighbors. They've wondered what's going to happen and whatnot. And there's been a lot of back and forth. But I can say right now that Mr. Gardella at 42, Hempstead, the Paradins at 28 Liberty, the Johnsons at 19 Liberty, Miss Brown at 34 Liberty, have all communicated that they would like to see this thing move forward, and they support it, or at least are not objecting to it. Now, so you might have a letter in there that said something other, that was a current letter, not from, opinions back in July of last year or October. So to me, that was important. And, I communicated with them either electronically or directly. So with that, I want to turn it over to Eric.
And have you included that? Have you included those letters of?
I don't have letters. I have email or I have texts or something like that.
You should, it would be helpful if.
Well, it's difficult for somebody to write a letter.
Well,
An email.
the email would be good, to put in the folder,
I will try.
for us to have it in the folder. So we have proof that this is what they suggest,
Sure.
how we feel,
Sure.
okay?
Okay. Okay.
Do we need to include formal letter?
No.
I'm just gonna let you guys try to do is again to keep it as concise as possible. Eric is gonna just read or present off of this, and I have enough for everybody if you want.
Okay.
And if there's questions on the plan, absolutely, we're here to address all of those. So rather than going through a detailed plan, let's maybe talk about the attributes and the highlights.
So again, my name is Eric Peterson, the architect working with Rob. Given that you have the bullet points, I'm not going to cover in any detail the proposed site plan. You can refer to
Eric, can you just spell your last name?
Peterson, Peterson. So some of the improvements to the property obviously would be anything new in terms of the on-site wastewater and sanitary growth code. There's improvements to the landscape screening that Ralph has worked out with the ZBA. And he's noted also how it's less than what zoning allows. So these are just some of the points from the site plan improvements.
Could you speak up?
Sure. Moving on to the more about the house, the existing house and proposed additions. And you. Given we had the informal fall meetings and massive scale, was obviously the primary focus of that. We went through really and examined any additions that we looking to do were through that lens of they were obviously subservient, similar detailing, and many of the additions were lower roof line than the existing. On the first, I think the gable and street side, you've got it's very close to Liberty Street. So the other additions on the left side, south side, and north side are obviously within setback, with the exception of the front porch. And those are smaller than the primary existing house gable. The roof lines again are similar pitches to the existing with similar trim details that is currently on the house. The front windows are obviously just as they are. There's not really any intentional organization to it. They're all center. We obviously maintained that, and we've carried that similar window size of the double glass through to the additions.
It would be helpful, now we have this. But if you have this to refer to, do you have this to refer to whatever you're talking about?
The renderings? Yeah.
So, do you?
I'd like to ask. Yeah, because I think the plans are a little confusing on it.
Right.
And
If you, I mean, I'm just thinking of something, it's hard for you to hold up the plans, right, and split, because we don't have the electronic.
Well, sheet 800.
Yeah, you would use this with what you're telling us now, it can help. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. So sheet A200 is the front elevation on the top. And right, so the front elevation is the Liberty side, and the prominent front gable is the existing gable. So you have those four double hungs that are obviously not really symmetrical. They're second floor, first floor windows, and the additions that we have on the left, which the left side, which the south side, you'll see on sheet A201 on the bottom, and that is the center gable. So a portion of that is a covered porch. And then there's a two-story addition, and because the width of that addition is less than existing front gable, it's obviously not as tall. So that ridge line does not match or go higher than the main ridge line. Going back to sheet A200.
Were you wanting him to use the rendering?
Either, I mean, I'm fine.
he's speaking about
Yeah.
the plan, so.
So we're good.
Okay.
They'll show us the rendering.
Yeah, so just staying on that sheet A200, we have the front elevation at the top. On the right side, there is a one-story porch, which is what there was a variance approved for. And you can see the profile of that on the elevation below, the right side elevation. So below the elevation, you see that one-story porch. And then on the second floor, you've got the second floor addition, which is one floor lower than the main ridge. So that was really just highlight the two-story addition, the front porch on the right, on the north side. And then there's a one-story addition ground floor that is is about the same E height as the front porch. And that's the northernmost right side. We want to look at the perspectives briefly. We can look at, there's one with a hedge and without a hedge, looking southwest.
Now you're on the run.
I'm sorry, yeah, on the renderings now. So on there should be your first rendering. It says the 25 Liberty Street view looking southwest. And there's it's the same rendering with and without a hedge. And there you'll see the existing house left on the upper left with the one-story porch, two-story addition to the right, and the one-story ground floor addition. Moving through to the view looking northwest, so that should be your third rendering. And that's where you see the car on the top left and on the left side. So that's where you'll see that left side two-story addition with the lower portion being partially a covered porch. And these, again, all the fascia and the eaves are to match the existing house. And that ridge would be lower. I don't have an exact dimension on it, but it would be over 1.5 lower than the main ridge. And with if the hedge was in place on Liberty, you're really not seeing much of the northern additions as if you were, in this view looking north. So that is really in summary the views of the house and the additions that are visible from Liberty. So if there's any questions, I don't know if you'd like to open it up to your comments.
So the picture with the car is that Hempstead Street,
No, I'm sorry. Looking towards Hempstead. So you're at the
looking
top,
from Hempstead.
you're at the top of Liberty, and you're looking down the hill.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I was in terms of you looking north. I always have to. I've been corrected a couple times on that. Sorry.
Zach, did you see everything?
I have
that
seen
you
it,
needed?
yeah. Yeah, but in fact, my memory has been a long. It's one will be 200%.
Mhm. So. Anybody have anything to say here on the board first? Before we hear from the public.
Yeah, I will say you made great strides. When we get to landscape, we only can comment on the pages, but architecturally, it's still a large, still a large house. How much was the total group?
Yeah. 33.5. Yeah. So the ground floor has been doubled, actually, and the total would be just below what is allowed at 33.65 versus second floor.
It is a big lot that was almost half an acre compared to the lots around it.
Right.
I would think. How's that leading to refresh?
Anybody from the public would like to speak? Well, everything is very positive. The one thing that's missing from this is the landscape plan. So we would like the whole package in order to move this along, move this.
Yeah, I started the landscape plan, I didn't start it, let's say, until we obtained the zoning approvals, because I didn't feel like it made sense.
Right.
So, everybody's a little backed up. So, but the good news is I have actually the second draft I received last night. It's looking pretty good. One thing that, and I just want to bring it out there right now, is one thing that we wanted to do, but we didn't do, because we weren't sure what was going to happen with zoning. And the landscape architect chimed in when he got involved, was if you look at the site plan, and you look at the one-story addition in the back, okay, it really wants to be shifted to the left more. So it's not aligned with the existing house, which kind of breaks up that long wall. It moves it over to the left. I don't know, probably some 6 to 8 feet. But it's set back 40 or 40 plus feet from the front wall. So it's quite a ways back. Anyway, landscape, that's the first thing that the landscape architect said is you really could use a little bit more room in there between the wall and the pool. So that was one of the things that we didn't get in by May 11. So in addition to the landscape plan being developed, we're tweaking that part as well. It's not going to result in any variances. It's not going to result in hardly any change at all. It just shifts it over. And, I guess, I don't know how you feel about that. I know I see a lot of additions in the back that are sort of doing that on Madison Street and some other things like that. But that's one change that we're working on still. So in addition to the landscape plan being submitted, we want to come back and do that as well, if that's okay.
So this would be a new design.
No, it's taking the existing structure and just moving it.
And you're saying how many feet do you want to?
The landscape architect said something like 6 to 8 feet.
That's an original rubble foundation?
No, not the rear addition.
No, the original part of the house.
That foundation is going to be, the house is going to be lifted. And it's going to be replaced with.
Right, I'm saying currently, is that a rubble?
Yes, and it's sharpened now, yeah. The rocks and the gray and brick above, that's sort of crumbled.
So you need some more profile, but it probably.
And so the only other thing is, Eric went through and we worked quite a bit to try to, working with the desire to have the ridge of the second floor addition be lower. So, but honestly, it's creating a lot of challenges from a mechanical system standpoint. We have no place to put ductwork because it's so low that when we put the ceiling joists in, there's not adequate space. On top of that, but honestly, this is one of the design iteration problems you run into. Is when you start out something and you're going with an assumption that you don't sometimes realize you got to change something to the other things that whenever other things change. So we started this process with 8-foot doors, so an 8-foot window and door height. And now we're at 8'9" ceilings on the first floor with 8-foot doors. That's not that typical for newer construction to have really, if you put a crown in a casing, you have nothing left. So it would be really helpful on those two matters, the mechanical systems and allowing us to maintain the 8-foot. And oh, by the way, one of the reasons why Eric did it, which was right, if you look at the front elevations of the old house and the new, even though they're the finished floor is 18 inches difference because we did put the internal stairs in. We put 3 risers, we're dropping it down, going down the hill. But we got the windows and the doors, they kind of line up. So it looks kind of nice. So, but now it's still there. I think, yeah, but I don't know. I know it's the exterior is nice, but I don't know if I like the interior. Okay, I don't know if I like having more casing hitting my crowns. So I would have to use 7.0 or 6.8 doors and window height, header height. If we don't get some, if we can't lift that ridge up, so at least it matches the existing ridge. We won't go higher, but we'd like that foot back. But honestly, I know it's.
Isn't that what you're showing here? Isn't it the same height?
No, that's actually a foot lower. But to be honest with you, you will. It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell whether it's the same or whether it's a foot lower. It's when you start looking at it.
Well, yeah, it's a rent. Also, you know, I don't know. What are you asking us to do? I mean, the issue, you read them all, right? You know what the walls are under the wall. So what are you asking us to do? Are you asking us to make an exception to the law, which we're not
Actually
empowered to do?
Well, I'll be honest with you, when I go around and I see 94 Franklin put up very recently, and it's the same ridge height as the contributing structure of the historic contributing structure that was done. It's an 80-foot wide house. The one we're proposing is 60. That's an 1/8 of a mile away. I got 11 Eastville behind me, that's 30 feet, it's 11 feet higher than my ridge, from the foundation to their ridge. 173 Bay Street is 4 feet. What is it? 30 Hempstead or 8 Eastville is, it's towering, you know?
Do you want to come back with a plan? of what you're talking
Yes,
about?
yeah, well, I'll come back with the
Of
land.
it being the landscape plan and of the ridges being equal. like-
Yes, the house, and the rear addition, we should go.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'll just make this comment. I don't believe there are any 8 or 10 foot hedges around Eastville.
Okay.
And having a living wall there. Although I can appreciate some reasons why you want to do it. And it will obscure the view of the house from the neighbors walking by. At the same time, it's a mess, right? There are neighbors around that have them. But, you know, that was before, they've been there for a long time. I know the history behind
I
it,
know.
so I'm not gonna speak
Across the
across
street.
the street. So I'm telling you before you get there. So, it's just a suggestion.
What would you, do you have any ideas or thoughts on that?
You know, I like the 4 foot high front yard fence. I think that's a good sort of thing that keeps the village with a sense of being openness and communication between people. That's the standard that I like. Subjective, as you suggested when you started your comments today. So just letting you know.
I have a question about the actual color. In this rendering, it looks almost gray, and in this it looks very stark white.
I have samples, if you get in the plan, it says,
Which one? My feeling is that if it were not stark bright white, it would be just a little softer in neighbors.
And we have the horizontal.
this is this is a sample, it's actually a little, it's not as, this is the hard, that's the hard, that's the,
And this is trim.
and this is the window sashes.
And also so Judith, the vertical, where there are vertical siding elements like underneath the porch, that was also to be accented in gray. So
Mhm.
that was the thought.
Yeah, so we're trying to keep it. I mean, I absolutely don't think you would any real super stark black and white thing going on.
Yeah.
And so it's try to keep it as muted as possible, but with the vertical siding being the same as the sash, there's really only 2 colors. You're not introducing 3. And we think it has a little bit of a fresher look to it, but still somewhat tasteful.
So out of curiosity, what's happening with
I'm sorry.
we've been through a lot with windows, but what's happening with the window and the other pictures in the original house? Are they doing the same?
Actually, so there's, I think 24 windows existing. There are 9 or 10 different varieties within that 24. And I'm not sure there's any that are original. A lot of them were doing replacement programs when those programs were offered to citizens, senior citizens. And so, you know, want to look through the house, be my guest, but I can tell you, I put letters on each type, and it's not the letter, you know, if it's I or J, and it's just over time, this house has been tinkered with. Well,
I don't know.
I don't know what that means.
Well, I don't know if we should.
it means there's no original.
I mean, I know that this is a new application in a way.
Correct,
Right.
yeah.
At one point, quite a long time ago, we did go and see the house.
Yeah. Well, it
Yeah.
was
It was in the winter of December,
December.
2 years ago.
December 27th of 2018.
Yeah. Yeah. So would that be, would you think that we should go and see, check out the windows?
I think what you'd be looking for, is there any, the nomination form says it's 6/6 flights will be set. That's one thing. Now, there may be variations on that. I think what could come of that is to try to ascertain some like normal standard type, not just to catalog all the different variations. I mean, that would be easily done, and we can be definitive about what that is, how that influences your discussion of what final design of it. I mean, clearly, there's a lot of new construction being built here. Yeah. So that's a whole other aesthetic decision. What you're really focusing on is preserving what survives of the original building. And if there are 3 or 4 of those, then it would be, advantageous to save those. They may not end up looking like the team wants them to look, and you wouldn't necessarily want that design to determine what you're doing, but you can have more than one window type. So it'd probably be worthwhile to take a look at the risk of prolonging the application and the discussion.
So if you let, you pull the office.
Sure.
And,
Sure.
we'll come up with a plan.
We'll clarify what you have.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, so we're going to, I make the motion to adjourn 25 Liberty Street. No, it's adjourned, correct?
No, it's table.
This one's table. Table. And,
Two
okay,
seconds.
motion to table. Who made the,
Need a second. You made the motion.
Second.
and
Okay.
then next. Nice. All in there. Thank you. Also, under public hearing, we need to, now this is to adjourn, correct? Hearing,
Yes.
26 Serene Avenue.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Next, we also need a motion to adjourn 15 Morrison Street, 12 Morrison Street, and 7 Morrison Street. All in favor? Good. Now, do I close the public hearing at this point? No, you don't. No. Thank you. All right, now. We'll move on to old business. And we need a motion to adjourn 55 Howard Street.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. And now we move on to number 2, old business, 48 Grand Street. Are you coming up, Randy?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
These are all smaller steps. Here.
That's such a great idea. Thank you. Thank you.
I do. Thank you.
I just need one for the record.
Okay.
Is that going on?
Well, it's not contributing, so.
Okay.
It's not historic, it's non.
Right.
Good afternoon. My name is Randy Croxton, 115 Madison Street. Been here over 35 years. This is actually a project that we had received a certificate of appropriateness for in 2018. And I'm delighted to say that if anything, the proposal that you have in front of you is even better. It's better in 3 very important ways. The first aspect, although it's not a contributing structure, it is historic. It was built, or I say historic, it is very much a part of the fabric of Sag Harbor. It was built in the 1880s. The home that is adjacent to it, which was owned by Janie Peters, the mother of one of my son's best friends. That is clearly, I think, one of the old workers' cottages that goes back to Faye's in the watch case factory. This one is a cottage form, again about the 1880s. It looks a little bit teeny bit more grand than the workers' cottages, but nonetheless, it's right in that fabric. It's right in that time frame. In the proposal that we made in 2018, the developer at that time was, we came up with a scheme in which we were peeling off the front porch, which was added later and somewhat non-conforming. And we also had cut off the rear portion. So it was significantly modified, but because it's not contributing, I'm sure that's the reason we got approval for that. We had a connection between that and the twin, because in order to keep the mass down and to have a sense of scale and character, we shaped the frontage so that we had really sister buildings, so sister fronts. The cottage, which is existing, is much more to the front. And so I'll very quickly run through the drawings that you have in front of you. The first sheet is basically just a series of photographs of that cottage building. It's characterized by having all wood shingle and having the fireplaces as the distinguishing elements architecturally. So basically a 3-bay house, and the non-conforming porch sort of masks the character of the building itself. It's a very large site, and so we're able to meet all of our criteria in terms of the sister building, which is about 1,500 square feet. If we turn to the next page, you'll see the survey of the existing condition on the left. And importantly, you see the number 2 improvement, which is that we no longer have a driveway going all the way to the back with a garage in the far back corner of the site. We have incorporated our parking very near the street, and therefore we avoid taking down E9, the upper right photographs that you see of this 80 to 90 foot high maple on site. So the roadway does not come in and does not destroy that element. If we turn to the next page, that's basically our architectural drawing of the existing condition. There's been an interim renting and minor modification to the site. It has the existing shed and a pool and a patio that have been added. If we go to the next drawing in red, you'll see the only portion of the existing cottage that we changed, and that is to modify the sort of non-compliant porch and take out the very modern windows that were stuck in there and take it back to being just a plain screened porch, which you would be able to see through very easily to see the original 3-bay composition of that side, looking out the ground. The next site shows the survey of the proposal. And so the key thing here, the third point of improvement is that the connector between the existing cottage and the new wing, as it were, has been pushed further to the south. And so it is no longer quite as much front on the street. And the two buildings have more of a sense of being two separate elements. The next image elaborates about the footprint. And here we have incorporated the same landscape plan that we had was approved previously, which is smaller versions of green giants in the front, and then an continuous evergreen coming around and all the way to the existing shed. That's because, as if you go back to the survey, you'll see that this is a typical Sag Harbor neighbor condition where the adjoining house is literally like 12 inches away from the property line. So that is a strong evergreen barrier, as it were. Then we transition, after we get to that outside, we transition to the cypress trees continuing around the perimeter. And of course, this shows all of the roofscape, the roof plan. And the final positive, actually there's four of them, is that this is both a one-story and a two-story new structure. So the first segment that you see there is only 1 story high. That's a 14-foot high ceiling space inside, and then you transition to a 2-story portion, and then finally an open screen porch in the rear. So the parking, which is the major change, is directly off of Grand and is provided at elevation so that you can walk up very easily to the center walkway and into either of the two portions. And just to highlight, we're allowed to have 20% coverage of the lot. We have 15.9. We're allowed to have total lot coverage of 25%. We have 22.6. We're allowed to have the building height to 35. We're at 27 foot 9 inches. We're allowed to have a GFA of 3,214. We're 3,202. Obviously, only 15, about half of that is actually the new construction. And vegetated area is supposed to be 50%, and we have 60%. If we go to the next image, you can see the two side elevations of the, I'm sorry, that's actually skipped one of the most important drawings, which is the elevation from the street.
That's 201 that you're looking at?
Yeah, A201 is the front elevation from the street. So here you see the, obviously it doesn't pick up the perspective three-dimensional relationship, but the two-dimensional presentation of the building. You can see the cottage on the right now has just the vertical piers and screen, open screening. Then you come up the center connector, and of course the old cottage with the fireplaces, and then you want to express that where the new building is, which is board and batten above the wood shingle on the lower level, its own unique treatment of windows. There are two doors leading out to that patio, and then you have the 1-story space, and directly behind it, the 2-story portion. Down below in that elevation, you can see to the right. First, you see beyond, that's the cottage, to the extreme right, where you see the sky plane. And then you have the 1-story portion, and then the 2-story portion, and then the porch with a deck over in the rear. We go to the 202. See the view from the, as it were, I'm in the backyard, probably about where the shed is, looking back at the two building elements. And the cottage on the left and the proposed building to the right. The bottom is the side elevation of the existing cottage. The next image, full page image, is the rendering, which shows the scale of these two elements and the way the house presents itself. And we're particularly glad that we have this particular client who really went along with trying to find the most modest sort of impact to the village and to the front. And I think the massing and putting back the connector even further back has helped that. Just a footnote on retaining walls, there are several retaining walls on the site. They're all 3 feet or more from the property line. They never go above 4 feet, which is the constraint on property on retaining walls. And then finally, put this in at the last minute. But the upper rendering is the new application in front of you. The lower rendering is the original two sister building proposal. You can see that the building on the left went abruptly straight up to 2 stories. The connector was much closer to the front. And we feel that this proposal brings a lot more success in terms of fitting in. We're directly across. I mean, we're not exactly in a super sensitive site. I mean, we're directly across the Pearson parking lot. So we're looking out at the school buses. But nonetheless, it's all part of the fabric. And, that's essentially our approach.
I like the new design. I am curious, was there a back porch on the original or?
Yes, the one that we have now actually keeps the back porch.
Has
Exactly.
that porch at the top. It's really not at the top, it's the first floor of the, right, in the back?
Oh, in the back,
In
you're
the
talking
back.
about the new building?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, it has as a matter of fact, the previous one had a larger wraparound balcony that overlooked the pool and so forth. We eliminated that and it only has just the direct amount over the outdoor.
Am I seeing 2 roof types? I'm seeing raised aluminum and.
Standing seam, a standing seam
Yeah.
metal roof on all of the new, and this as distinguished from the wood shingle on the existing.
That's clearly the thing.
This would have to have a public hearing. This is 3,000.
I read it as the portion that actually is modified. It includes an existing structure.
The whole
So
structure,
Um,
I believe.
I-
If it's over
That's correct,
3,000.
right, Harry?
Yeah, let me double check the plans. I'll follow. Because
yeah,
Right.
yeah, we
So
thought
that-
it was,
that-
we thought it was like 1,500 added. My client will be surprised, but so we'll follow up. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I think it's an improvement over the, but I think it was very helpful that you took this last page.
Yeah, it's
Very convincing.
the last page is maybe more convincing than anything else.
should have started with that.
I started to, and I thought, well, I'll turn to the last page.
Good point.
Okay, so we'll schedule public hearing there.
Is it,
Is that
sorry,
good?
the 100% hold?
It's not 3,000. Anything that can, that 3,000 square foot or bigger or larger would be mandatory, but let me just look at what you have.
Sure.
So we'll wait for
Okay.
schedule. Is that
Yeah.
okay?
Okay,
We'll have to wait.
Well, worst comes to worst, we'll have Chris look at it tomorrow, and if you need, if you do the.
I'll be here.
We'll do it like that with Carrie and Chris.
Okay, I'll stop by tomorrow.
Did you make a motion to table?
I will. Did you give me the table or did you?
Table. You're only adjourning when somebody requests to adjourn.
Okay, we're going to, I need a motion to table 48 Green Street.
I will make that motion.
I will second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Move on to new business. Number 1, 56 Redwood Road.
I both you for hearing me tonight. I'm Mike Chiappi. I'm the contractor and the applicant for our meeting on Passat at 56 Redwood. We're here seeking permission to paint the house and add an egress from the basement. The original plan had a big second-story deck with doors going out to that deck. That we eliminated the deck. And of course, we're eliminating the doors. So we're just asking right now for painting of the house, new roof, sorry, and the egress.
And the
Colors right here, so.
what kind of material for the roof?
Excuse me,
They have-
Material for the roof?
it's Tamco roof, it's Tamco GAF. Typical architectural,
Okay. There you go.
Colors. Yes. It's, yeah. And that's what's existing right now, too, right? Yes.
actually, it's a very light gray that's on there right now. This is a more of a white color.
The egress is emergency egress or?
It is the main egress for the basement. In the first plan that we were approved of, the basement's getting finished. And we had an egress there with an egress well. And then on our second meeting with my client, she suggested putting a door, and I said, well, why don't we just come out a little bit? So you literally walk out and walk up. And we're about 4 feet at that point from grade, so it's not a deep well, it's maybe 4 or 5 risers.
No zoning issues, no side yards.
We're all good in that area.
It's the door and paint and roof, so. I feel one. I'll take a motion to move this. Like that.
So.
Second?
No.
Okay.
Second,
Sorry.
all in favor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You have a good evening.
Thank you.
Oh, here is number 2.
64 minus 16.
Nice.
Yeah. But he's new.
For the record, I am the architect for 64. I'm sorry,
Harrison.
54 Harrison Street. This is in addition to a 1,500 square foot ranch house.
Did you say your name? Sir?
I did.
We don't know who you are.
Yeah.
Page 1, for your reference, is the site plan. You can see the blue portion is the addition, which is the back of the house. So we're not increasing the use on the house, it's a 3-bedroom house. The goal of this addition was to make the 2 back bedrooms each enjoy their own bathroom. As it is now, this house shares 1 common bathroom. So the mass and scale of the house is not changing. It's 14 feet 3 inches tall, which is the existing village height. And it's less than 3,000 square feet, because that's the magic number, which triggers public hearing. It's 2,100 square feet total. And meets all setbacks. It's got mature plantings. The elevations, as you look through the second page, is the entry, which you can see the front porch. Third page is the rear addition, and you can see the back porch. Pages 4 and 5 demonstrate the addition as it moves towards the backyard. And lastly, page 6 is details and also material specifications.
Again, but that's the back.
Looks like you're just matching up all the materials with the
Yes.
just materials, so I think that it's okay with zoning and everything's in line, so.
Yeah, it's a modest addition. In like kind, it's just more of this detail work. So truth be told, if this house ever sells in the future, I'm sure the property value is such that if I tear it down, build it. So this is just to make the house more functional. And, it is a pretty nice house, so I think the one next door were both built 1960-ish, 1950. I'm not sure of the date, but there's no history to it. Corporal Plants Fire grew up in this house. I can't say too much more. It contributes to the street. It's a nice looking ranch house. That's the story.
It's probably just the way it's rendered, but in this, on page 5, the garage looks like it's a big peak roof. And then,
So that's an existing studio and
Okay.
garage. Yeah.
then is this then what it turns into?
Nothing, yeah, that's.
Okay, because all of a sudden.
Yeah.
This is gone away.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is, oh. okay.
Correct, it's the brown building.
Yes. Property, so this is all, yeah.
I used to live next door. to this, actually.
Oh, really? Ah,
Yeah.
60.
Anybody, any questions? So, I would like to move, I have a motion to move for our country.
So Bethany and Robert.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lord.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move on to 64 Union. No. From what I understand, the new for the proposed swimming pool, which meets all the setbacks and everything is in order.
Yeah, we got it.
Yep, thank you.
I used to live here. Were you flipping houses? What were you doing? You get a wreck when you're young. There.
So. It meets setbacks, I know that they so that it would go within,
Yes.
before you. Oh, okay, well, sure. Yeah, there's his house.
Right.
So they've been showing us the yard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're running in the yard.
Good for him. Hold on, this is ready to go. Good.
Make a motion?
Okay. There's a motion please, for 64 Union.
Motion to approve the tool at 64 Union Street.
All in favor?
Aye.
No. This would have been.
Wow, I know, I thought they only had.
So I'm going to, should I go back and go first there?
No, you already went to Howard. You're doing,
I'm just gonna keep going.
so your motion to adjourn 110.
Yeah, 110 division, I need a motion to adjourn. 110 division.
So.
A second, please.
Seconds.
All in favor? On 27 words. Let's here. Hi, Catherine Fee, 12 Deerfield Road. I'm the architect for 27 Glover Street. And I have drawings to pass out. Okay. The first sheet shows the existing site plan. There's a set of concrete stairs. That's now the entrance off of Green Street. We want to remove those stairs and close that area and make it part of the first floor. And underneath it will be a laundry room on the lower level. So the next sheet is the proposed site plan. It shows that one-story addition. And we'd like to build a new entry, a small covered porch off of Green, with a set of stairs up to a porch with columns and a shed roof. There's an existing open deck that is approximately 4 by 14, 5 by 14. We're gonna remove that and expand it and run it the length of that west elevation. And then we propose to remove the existing covered porch and replace it with a larger one. Approximately 14 by 17 feet. The next pages are the floor plan. The basement floor. Shows both the laundry room and those stairs, the new stairs along Green Street. Underneath the open deck and the screened-in porch is an area that's going to have a bluestone floor. It'll be used for some storage underneath the screen porch and remain open under the open deck like it is now. The next sheet shows the first floor addition, the sitting room, an entry off of Green Street. The larger open deck, which is along the west elevation, and the larger screened-in porch, which has a stair on the north side that you can access. The next sheet is the roof plan. And then we have the elevations. The east elevation is Glover. And it shows the small side entry, which is set back from the front of the house. And you can see that on the south elevation, the head-on view. And then we have our one-story addition, which is essentially a roof kick off the existing roof line. The kitchen remains, that has it's a gable roof, and then you can see the screen-in porch beyond, and the new open deck in front of that. The other elevations, the west elevation shows the existing kitchen roof line and our new one-story roof kick with the open deck in front of it and the screen-in porch to the left. Zach, you want to come see?
Oh, I have.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah, Kathy. I didn't know to do. Tough house. You know. Because it's been so altered. Have you seen anything of historical interest working on the project? In terms of interior?
Yes, like the lower level.
Yeah.
It's amazing, you know, that there's a, I think it was a speakeasy or something.
Oh,
That's the room.
yeah.
The ceiling height on that lower level.
It's, well, the floor joists are open,
Mhm.
so.
Oh, okay, so it's I thought it was finished.
Should I see a measurement of 74 there?
No, it's 8-1 from floor to floor, from basement floor to first floor. And I think the floor joists are like 4 by 8s. And they're exposed, so it gives you a little bit more height down there.
I mean, visually, the house has been so altered that you have to sort of search for a sense of its historical. And I would just say that if nothing you're proposing ends up damaging or removing or altering anything that is surviving of the historical house, then that would be the criteria for me. because visually it is so altered from the exterior that it's really not, contributing. Technically, it meets the bar, but it doesn't visually contribute to the neighborhood
Yeah,
in
the
a
whole,
historic.
the whole rear is an addition.
Yep.
Additions.
And to have
Right.
shifted, I mean, ordinarily, you see a three-bay house and then an outlet is, one of those windows ought to be the doorway, on one side or the other.
Right.
So this is a building which will be here on several occasions. Has been kind of altered, repurposed, reimagined. And now to enter it, to go up a flight of stairs into a one-story side extension where the front door is not. That's not right. I'm just saying, so many essential elements of it have been lost through a series of alterations, et cetera, that it's, I would say it's more of a just an exercise in trying to preserve what you can find that is still worth saving. It doesn't contribute to the outside impact. I don't think that anything proposed is any greater than what's already been built in the way of, new
Gotta be
things.
better than those dorms.
They're tough. Yeah, but they're there.
So question, I didn't walk onto the property, so trying to get a sense. You have Green Street there. I thought this was almost a waterfront piece of property.
Almost, you can see water, at least you can now, you might not be able to when they're finished. Yeah.
So,
One would be visible.
Right.
so the landscape between this house and its neighbor, the school is really where my question is about to. Can you just tell me what the landscaping was back there?
Well, pretty heavily landscaped,
It's very helpful.
and I imagine that the person that's building in front of her will be landscaping as well.
And there's no change there's no change in the landscape.
No, that. Just some minor, paths, to the new front door. We do have the perspectives. Last sheet, showing, existing proposed. Just so you understand that.
So you
The mass,
you're enlarging that enclosed.
yes. And right now, it's 12 by 10, and it just doesn't do anything.
Doesn't make a difference. I mean, from that perspective, this is A 5.3. That's really the only, and that's a vantage point from the street that you're coming down walls over. So you're not changing the massing of the house, really, in any way, except for that. Back.
Kind of hard, you really don't see from either.
Seems really true from the. Green streets, a lot of that stuff.
So are you you're not raising the height of the existing deck, you're just extending it in the back.
Yes.
So my only question is that it's so high, it's close to, we don't like the second story dash, but I don't feel like just would intrude on your neighbor's privacy. What my concern,
Right.
but it's existing, so I don't think it's
Just
right.
It's not really a second story deck.
It's kind of 8 feet up.
That was my reaction, no, it's not, I look at it, like it's not a second story.
It's a half story.
Yeah.
right.
Right, so anyone else, good for me? Good.
Good.
Right, so, I'll entertain a motion. Cool.
Motion to approve 27 Glover Street.
All second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So here's. Then she gave us that. I'm gonna miss you. Thank you.
Okay, so 59 Glover Street. For discussion item.
Okay. 59 Glover. Discussion.
Yes.
I did not have the foresight to print out 5 full sets, but
We have three, so we don't.
I can give you at least some imagery and extra, things up close.
You make a kid.
Already. My name is Mark Zinke. I'm the architect representing clients for 59 Glover. And to begin, we are proposing the removal of an existing non-contributing house built in 1997 from the property and building a new home, slightly larger. The existing house is a bit over 3,000 square feet. We're proposing a 3,700 square foot house, slightly over 3,700 square feet. We're within all sort of zoning parameters. And the only thing that we are sort of seeking in tandem is harbor committee approval, which is underway already. To give you a sense of the site, we're showing the conforming 50-foot buffer, in addition to a bit extra for the clear line to get to the existing dock and boathouse, which are going to remain. We're not proposing to change any of that. This. So what we're presenting, or proposing rather, is rather sort of referential style project, one with sort of Sag Harbor vein, trying to fit into the fabric a bit more closely than the existing house, which doesn't quite do it for our client or us. So this is sort of the idea. It's a shingled and planked house. We're pulling the color scheme from a house on Howard Street that was recently completed by Stephen Yambel. And the other thing we are proposing is a 450 square foot standalone garage sitting in what is the backyard, but on the street side of the house. There. And we are proposing to reorient the existing pool to be in line with the coastline. But overall, the house is retreating a little over 21 feet from where it currently stands from the water line.
it's coming closer to the street.
Correct.
Okay.
So just for us here, we just want to confirm
Yes,
front entry,
yes,
garage you mentioned,
yeah, in the driveway,
in the driveway, in the rear,
back of house.
and then this is just the driveway.
That's from the street, yeah, yeah. It's a bit of a flag lot, so you don't get much of a view of the property from the street.
So as Hanson pointed out, this is actually, this is the driveway coming off of Club.
Correct.
So the garage, even though, but it's like the back and front.
Yeah, it's much like the neighboring property, 53 Glover, which did the same with the garage in the front, which is the back.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Right, so it's just,
Yes, there it is. Mhm.
so you're putting a pool on the back.
yeah, there's an existing pool to the north of the house. We're reorienting it north-south, and it'll be sitting, yeah, just on the, kind of just on the water side, tucked into the L of the house.
Gotcha.
And I basically see this, well, is there anything else? that we need to do that? It can move to me. So what's there now is how many square feet?
It's 3,040.
And what will this be?
We'll be at 3770.
It's like,
Right. It's a handsome, design. Yeah, like,
And it is not very visible from the Glover anyway.
Yeah, that one view from the street is about all you get. And that was kind of just before winter, so there's been a foliage still, but it's not very visible.
what type of exterior materials are you thinking?
So we're proposing painted plank and painted shingle and painted trim for the facades. And cedar shake roof on the second story roof, and then standing seam lead coated copper. The lower kind of extension shed, yeah, that front, that porch and yeah. And then a stacked stone sort of foundation, which will be
Veneer, stone on the.
so, yeah, it'll be a veneer, of course, which will kind of pull from the local vernacular.
Mhm.
so we'll forward to your next step, yeah.
Okay, great.
And I think that Steve's gonna wanna see a landscape plan on this.
Yeah, we actually have. We actually have. It is effectively this buffer planting plan. We're not showing the perimeter hedges, but we can expand a bit on that, as you might see fit, but. Yeah.
Any other lighting?
Okay.
Yeah, everything's good.
Any other comments before we bring it back for proper?
So is this, do we keep this with the folder or no?
Thank you very much.
You can bring it back when you come for your goals. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. See you soon.
discussion item is 26 Walker Avenue.
You look friends.
I printed out, yeah.
Thanks. Right, good evening, members of the board. I am not representing Pizza LLC. I'm representing a throw-in last minute discussion item for 26 Walker. I'm the architect of record, Kate Overton. I represent the owners, Sandra Hurst and Jaime Wright. Going old school here, because I actually didn't know if you had any friends, but Carrie was gracious enough to print things for you, so this is helpful. But I also have some larger things that I'll just sort of act like we're on Zoom and I'll point to it. Boxes. Apologize if this is a little haphazard. I think the main objective of bringing this to your attention today is we are going for a zoning variance for the building. We're encroaching the gross square footage allowable for the site. And the client, and Sandy, they have a nuclear family. Their entire family is going to be living with them, and Sandra's mother is staying with them. And so we wanted to create 2 master suites essentially on the ground level and make it accessible given her age. So that's the approach for why we how we designed this house. I'll obviously we need to get through that era to that particular board hopefully next month, and we'll come back to present again to you guys.
That's zoning, you said?
Zoning, correct, zoning. And yeah, so but there are a lot of factors to this house that are certainly, you're going to be wanting to understand and clarify, and I'd like your feedback as much as possible. So bear with me, but I'm going through the details. The house currently, if you have the site plan or the survey, there's an existing house that's made up of basically 3 houses, series of additions put onto the house. And we're looking to modify that. In fact, the issue with the house, if you can see, this is sort of like a first section, then the middle section, and then this garage is put up in there. Sorry, I know it's so much easier on a Zoom call. But it's kind of a haphazard house. And we're taking it down.
Yeah.
And the main, back to the zoning point, the north side of the house is right on the 15-foot setback. The median, the topography is low at where the driveway is and high in the back catty corner of the back corner of the property. So the median level sets our datum for the sky plane encroachment, and basically we could not build a second floor onto this existing portion of the house given its proximity to the 50-foot setback in the top of the median datum. So we're rethinking the whole house. Plus, not to mention the foundation of the 3 different stepped kind of additions is irregular and not consistent, and it's a mess. So structurally speaking, we need to rebuild a house on this property. We are let's jump to so essentially we're pulling the whole house towards the south to center it on the site, and we're taking essentially making the house into 2 segments. So there's a south section, a link, and then a north section that's rotated perpendicular to go east to west. That way we can get a second floor and not encroach in the sky plane. We create a nice rear backyard kind of cradled by this wing. We're kind of maximizing the potential of the site without encroaching on setbacks or the sky planes. We are obviously building a house that's slightly bigger than what's allowable, but it's the general concept is basically a 2-wing house, essentially a long house that's been cracked and pushed over. Is the diagram. And there's 2 levels to the house. Let me jump into elevations. You've done this like this again. Actually, I need a laser pointer. Yeah, it's just like back 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So the front facade is here, so it's street level. You have a garage and then basement next to it. So the garage is expressed on the front of the back of the building. First floor, so this building, this portion of the house is basically 1 story with a high ceiling, and we're keeping it at 8 feet. And then there's an attic space behind here for mechanical and storage. This is the main entry, so sort of a terraced path up to the main entry. And that slot kind of cuts through the whole site. And then this is the wing that runs east-west, which is a 2-story house. Given the height, we're pitching a roof, the zoning criteria. I'll get into the renderings because I'll tell you a better picture. This is from the south. So there's a lower roof for this section here, and a higher roof for this kind of extra high space. And this is the house beyond. There's a pool house, to add to the excitement of the house and what I'm going to have to convey to you guys during the real presentation. Is how we're handling that. But it's within the setbacks. The rear facade, is pretty straightforward in terms of, again, it's this volume that runs, the 2-story volume that runs east-west, then the main living space here, and then there's a second floor sort of terrace area. And this is the north facade. Let's see, let me just go straight to the renderings. Tell the story, you're already there. So the front facade, the driveway is expanded to turn around. It's a permeable drive, so it will be, a lockcrete or something that allows plants to go through it. The terraced kind of planted step going up to the main entry. So this is that first floor level with the dining room space and the bedroom wing for mom here. Then the second kind of pop up extra high space for the living room and the attic beyond. And then this is a 2-story bedroom, and basically all the bedrooms are in this side, besides mom who's over here. That's what mom gets her own wing. And no, this is just looking from the other direction, from say the northwest. So this is first floor has a den, bedroom here, bedroom back here, and then the master suite's back here. There's a stair right here, and then just another view of this kind of front entry, and that drive from the back. This is looking from the southeast, so this is the pool house right in the foreground. You can see this is mom's suite, and the bedroom or living room space is beyond here, and then that 2-story portion here. And then Jaime and Sandy are in this portion here. So the master suite is in this lower 1-story space. And this is just from the north east. So this is that 1-story master suite in the ground level, pool house, and that 2nd-story kind of terrace. There's a fireplace feature that's actually 3 fireplaces, one inside, one outside on the first floor, and then a second one or third one on the upper terrace. So because of the pool, we are planting all around. Fortunately, the site's pretty well maturely planted. We're not, in the nature of the existing building, by removing it, we're not removing any trees, but we are going to build up around the perimeter. We'll have a proper or complete site plan with the vegetation proposed to make sure that we're giving it privacy as needed. Finishes, we're currently thinking a shiplap wood siding or synthetic material, but a shiplap design for this kind of a light tannish color here. A standing seam metal roof throughout. Then the base of the house will be a stone veneer, something that feels a little more earthy, a little bit more naturalistic. Trying to think of what else to convey. Oh, there are existing solar panels. I know this is we're taking out the existing solar panels. They're dated and not very efficient, but the owners would like to
introduce new solar panels, and I know that gets into, well, what's generally accepted by the boards, and I'd like to kind of take feedback from you into what is potentially acceptable, and we'll present that. But I'll open up to any questions.
So grandma and mom and dad are on the polar opposite.
I follow the instructions
idea.
that I've given.
Still walk out in front of school.
Yeah, I think she wanted it that way.
One question. The house that's next.
Yes, the house next door, I'm curious how many members of the ZBA actually have seen that house. It was built as of right, so I've heard, but, so they followed literally the sky plane, with their, roof design. It is close, and, where's the best view? This is basically this view, so we're putting a stair here. We have louvers currently designed for the stair for some form of privacy, but yes, that house is right here. So we'll want to do something about privacy.
Have you guys done on tables like you designed this entire section? This is like, gonna be a lot of mass in the street side. And then there's some other massive houses on the street side. One of them that you don't have a connection to under construction. Is there anything you think you can do just to visually lower the impact of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good question. We actually started off by doing that. Initially, the client wanted, the term was contemporary barn, which was one long, large building, essentially on the footprint of the existing house, 2 stories, maxed up, which you could, slide the whole thing up over and do as of right and keep it within the gross square footage, and it just felt ridiculously massive as just one move.
Well, I do like the fact.
So that break and turn was the first move to break down that visual.
Great idea.
Yes, the current house, if you look at it, the garage with what's on top of it feels very present. So that's why we try to step it back. So we have a 1-story, a lower datum than what's currently there here up front, and that higher, extra high space for the living room and this attic, we pushed it back. The other thing we are trying to do to break down those that massive feel is extend eaves. It seems counterintuitive, but if you kind of extend the eaves and create a little bit more horizontality, it doesn't feel so vertical. Sort of like that classic Franklin light. We thought it would help here, so we did roll that into the design approach, and we felt it did help. We can. I'm thinking of other ways that we can do it. I mean, generally just bringing down the datum. Where we can, for example, the height of this lower roof, we're able to keep it lower than the 612 requirement because it's below 25 feet. Versus having a super high kind of fascia here at the roof. And again, this eave here, we sliced it this way. This kind of depicts it. So instead of continuing this ridge line all the way over to the edge of the house, we cut it back and created a hip condition facing south, again, to break down the mass. So we've done a few things, but we'll, I hear what you're saying, and I agree. So we'll see what else we can do.
That seems like that one does seem in the second story.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too, but I'm also thinking that it's embraced by this rear extension, right? The return here of the family living quarters. So it's not really looking down.
Right.
All of the rear terrace.
Yeah.
There it is. We're proposing that.
How many chimneys? Just one chimney.
One chimney with 3 roofs.
Yeah. So am I right? So the question is about the second floor deck, right?
Mhm.
So I was thinking about that too, and when I'm thinking at least to one side, it's obscured
by the house.
By the house, by the- Remind me, who's on the other side?
Yeah, this, so this, yeah, Mr. Graves is in this house.
Mr. Joe.
Joe. We will be, Joe's will be
I think
approaching
there's some
Jim.
landscaping on that side.
Yeah, we're going to landscape that. I mean, I like Joe, you know, it's got a scene over there. But yeah, I understand, when you're up higher on a property and plus you have a destination, a fireplace. To have people up there, voices project. I recognize that could be a concern. It might actually be a concern to someone in Sag Harbor Hills, just in the property behind here.
Good point.
Yeah, right.
Is there any exterior material, since this is on the private side of the home, that you can use that would tamper down, or have some sort of wouldn't reflect?
Yeah, that's interesting. There are, I mean, we have a guardrail that will obviously help, that's solid. But I'm also thinking about what we can plant along this back side, and let me actually show you. The rear yard plantings. I think I just realized there's never enough photos with these things. That's actually why I love the Zoom calls, because if there's a question, I can go pull it up right away and check it out. Yeah, we've had to, my office has staff all over the world, it seems. I don't have a huge office, but people travel, they're still working. This is the rear yard lot line. This fence here is the rear yard line. So they're mature trees back there. I think it's a matter of filling it in. It's filling in that vertical datum up to the basically the eave of the house. And then that would help. And the fence actually helps. And
Could you tell me what datum means?
Datum is just referring to a horizontal line or a vertical line. In this case,
Just a line.
a line to a marker, yeah.
Yard. In the yard in the.
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess, so when we think about, sorry, sidebar.
So the thing, the bottom of the first piece, on the left, top left, that could also, the bottom
Yeah,
of them,
yeah.
that must be considered there.
That's exactly what Steve. So these are these older conifers, they're small and they work pretty well at blocking sound. But obviously, the denser and more kind of air pockets you get, or something that further dampens sound. So that's why the green giants tend to be the go-to. It blocks the view, but it also helps dampen sound. You will hear through it, but it's
It's a little bit.
it's a little better. And out of sight, out of mind.
Is that a chain?
No, that's a stockade fence, and it appears to be built by the previous owner of this house. And then it looks like another type of fence on Joe's side. Yeah.
It's pretty, it's just. How many square feet is it?
It is it's allowable is 3460, and we're proposing 30, excuse me. 4. Now I lost my train of thought.
450.
Let me check my number data. Yeah, we're asking for 600 square feet roughly over the. Yeah, something about that. I've clients push. They originally wanted a 5,000 square foot house, and we brought it. I told them they just, you don't need to have that big of a house, even when your whole family's there. And they have adult children.
You want to see each other.
So is this gonna be morphing everything else?
Well, not everything, but it is in terms of net. But A lot of it is not on the street.
Yeah.
Right, but what's on the street is still coming. It happens to be, they've got some neighbors that are building houses, bigger than. Oh, I've heard that. They're building some houses along the streets. And some developer came to us 2 years ago. You remember, on the other side, all of the larger houses on one side, literally the same side. He's gonna do something on the other side. It's just an area where people doing.
I built a big one on the corner of Walk.
One for change, you built that?
Yeah.
That was one here. So that is, that's another example of a house that has a wing. Yeah. And the site's larger because of your able to get that.
Only thing about my own family, that house is built.
I see, I think all of it is.
I'm talking about the one interior staircase, almost like a flying fish. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, there's a scissor staircase then to the basement's a little different.
Right.
Well, like that property, this property is up on a hill, which
Right, it makes it
Help.
look even taller.
Yeah.
it has both a great curb appeal, but also a very present curb. It has big, it feels bigger than it really was. If it were in, or down a slope or
Right.
you know, or on a flat property, it would be less of an impact.
Suppose.
Or if we put trees in the front.
The question is really pushing. You know, if I'm friendly with them, but those are pushing. Yeah, I'm trying to think if we could do something with the landscaping on the street side
Well, you know,
to make it look
that's
maybe some mature.
that's interesting. We for the nature of, you know, the neighborhood, we're kind of anti-hedge. And
Yeah, yeah.
So-
I think it's about something like pure freestanding tree.
I like that.
Scale. Since the scale would be different if these things are 30 or 40 feet high, extending it.
That's a great idea. You know, that right here, there's a series of pine trees that I'm sure
Yeah.
that wrap around here.
Yeah.
And they have that scale,
Right.
but they have the translucency, so you can see through them.
Right.
And that could help create a,
Or 3 to 5 of them. Well, I think it's all you need.
Yeah.
You know, and it can be something to do. Japanese make over there.
And the questions about the skyline. It's pretty much usually, right, the way it's about.
oh, I'm sorry, the solar panel.
Solar.
Yeah.
Solar panel, usually, well, of course, it depends on the direction. of the-
Yeah.
Where the house is, but it's usually to the back.
That's what happens. People want to.
Well, no, that's the street.
You kind of have them all over.
Yeah, it's like every time it's really.
Well, they have
That's,
those-
that becomes, yeah. Okay.
So they're pretty-
I keep hearing the mixed reviews about it.
They are out.
Well, no, I don't know, but depending, you know, the opinions of different boards or just people in
Yeah.
general, they still have that reflective quality. I think that seems to
Oh,
annoy some.
Really? What are you talking about? The Tesla?
that's what.
There was one down, it wasn't good Glover. It
was even Howard Glover, and we okayed it because it was gonna go on the back. Even though it's shiny.
There was one though. Yeah, when I first got on he took me and they were putting on test,
Yeah,
and it was a trial, and I drive down the street and I can't remember.
yeah, well, it's-
But they're only on the back.
yeah.
I think on both sides. This group, I remember working.
But